Hi, and welcome.
I'm Z,
And I'm Keith.
and we're going to tell you about the movie that we just watched. But first, a little bit of a heads up.
Some of the movies we watch deal with heavy subject matters.
In order to talk about these emotionally delicate things and the heavy subject matters that we sometimes cover, we add humor and crude language to add some levity and to process our own trauma.
If that doesn't feel fun or safe for you, we completely understand. Please take care of yourself first and foremost.
And we spoil the end of pretty much every movie that we watch.
Now you know. On Oh, that was a little bit my fault because I was sitting over there and I pushed it.
No, but I was like, I'll be like, why can't I hear myself? And then I'm like, because I haven't set up my mic yet. Like yesterday when I was stoned and I was like, you were talking and I was just like, why can't I hear myself? But I hadn't said anything.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I didn't get stoned before the actual up. So,
Today, you mean?
yeah, so there's not going to be any laughing about Griffin Dunn.
Yeah, we can't laugh about that. No.
Well, I mean, it's not as funny to me today.
Yeah. Me either. A Nightmare on Elm Street 2.
Yeah.
Freddy's Revenge.
Oh, man, I meant to read more trivia, but I forgot.
Yeah, I didn't read nothing about it. This time.
It is very like, I mean, I do remember last time when we were watching it, I was like, this seems so homoerotic.
Right.
And we were both like, what the fuck? And then we looked it up and we were like, oh, okay, so it is supposed to be
That's
homoerotic.
intentional.
It's not. And I think it's a really interesting sort of like it's like it's interesting, and the way that it's done is very like tricky, because it really does like, not in like a bad way, like tricky, like it gives you, like, if you're not like aware, or if you're not like
Woke.
yeah if you're not dark woke, it might, you'll see it for the, what I believe is the intentional sort of like growing up in church,
Yeah.
with a lot of religion, like it's very much like, being gay is bad. You're giving into something bad. You're giving into a dark desire. It's something of the flesh. There's all these like things that are like, it's bad. So like, if that's sort of the intention with which you're watching it, you'll only see that part of it.
Right.
But it does feel like an allegory for like, you have to, like, the amount with which you have to fight yourself,
Right.
because this is just who you are, and it's demonized and monsterized and made to be this horrible thing that your whole family sees and doesn't accept. And even when you think you've destroyed it and beat it, that's not how it works, It's always going to be there, sort
It's going
of.
to drive you into the desert.
Yeah, it's gonna drive you into the desert. So it's an interesting sort of. I think if you're looking at it from the perspective of like, it's all bad, then you're like, oh, you're not going to see the sort of like deeper meaning. But if you are looking for a deeper meaning.
What do you mean it's all bad?
Like, like, oh, it's just a horror movie. Like, oh, it's just like Freddy's bad. And like,
okay.
so he's just, it's just bad stuff that he doesn't want to do. Like, you're not really going to see
Yeah.
like the deeper meaning in
Right.
it. And I think in that way, it that's what I mean by it's tricky, that it doesn't go so heavy
Yeah.
that you're like, oh, this is, if you're aware, you're like, this has to be an allegory for being queer. And you're right. But like, if you're not looking for that, you're going to be like, right, this is just a Nightmare on Elm Street movie.
Right.
But it is the only Nightmare on Elm Street movie with a male lead,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
which is, I think that's,
Yeah, I guess that's true.
yeah. Even the remake,
They did a remake?
we've watched it.
We did?
Yep. Jackie Earle Haley plays Freddy Krueger.
I have no memory of this.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
I think we watched it like when we watched yeah.
Wild.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Yes. Now it's coming back.
Yeah.
And it was real bad.
I didn't think it was bad. I liked it more than cuz it sort of does a little bit like it like the whole thing of like them finding out that like their parents like burned him alive because
Right.
they thought he was abusing them. And they're like, "Oh
Right.
my God." And then they find out like, no, he was abusing us. He's just a horrible person. There was this coming after us. I was like, damn, they didn't sugarcoat it. They were like, he's just a horrible monster that like didn't
Right.
make us suffer enough, and so he's coming back to do it again. I was like, oh my God. So I don't know. I didn't think it was that bad. Everyone was like, it's terrible. But I'm like, I'm such a fan of Jackie Earle Haley.
I'm sure I would have a different,
Yeah.
clearly I
Yeah.
had suppressed it.
Yeah. Clearly.
Yeah, and I was thinking watching this, like, as a franchise, especially as a horror franchise. I mean, I know Friday 13th is similarly guilty of this, but not to... I feel like Nightmare on Elm Street is like every movie, his origin story has changed.
Right. Yeah.
And what the rules are.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is, not atypical for a lot of
Yeah.
horror movies that, like, where there's one made and then somebody picks it up and carries
Like The Ring.
torch.
The Ring is one where like constantly the ethos changes or whatever it is. Like
Yeah, I mean,
I find that cool. Or I think it's cool what they do with The Ring.
Yeah, because it builds on it.
Yes.
It's not like a
Yes.
rewriting
Yes,
every time,
correct.
right?
Right. Because they do the thing where because it gets transferred to digital, and
Right.
because it gets transferred to digital, there's more, like it becomes more dangerous because you're able to like
Yeah.
more deeply analyze.
Different rules.
And like there's this like scene where they like in the it's showing that there's like one freeze frame. Like they freeze frame on it and they're saying there's 30 minutes in this one freeze frame. So it's like stuff like that where I'm like, oh, I do think that's really cool. I like that, it's changing the rules because the world changed.
Right.
So I like that.
That's different than what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I just wanted to say like, I think it can be done well.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think sometimes
No,
it can
I
be
think
done
that's really interesting
so
too.
dumb.
What?
I think sometimes it's done really well.
Yeah.
Like when you're like changing for the times, and then sometimes you're like, oh.
Yeah. Well, Scream.
Yeah.
Final Destination. No, I don't know. I don't know if that counts. But yeah. I just think that Elm Street is just so wildly all
Yeah.
over the map, and like
Yeah.
when you get to
Dream Warriors.
that's the one everybody loves.
I do like that one. I do like that one's ridiculous.
It's fine.
Yeah.
I don't dislike it. I imagine this one is disliked because it doesn't feel like the others.
Yeah.
For all the reasons that we're talking about. But the one where she has a baby or he has a baby or whatever, like that. Come on.
So
I mean, I don't dislike. I think people also get pissy about like the fact that it gets super self-referential or like becomes
Yeah.
so goofy.
right. Yeah.
But whatever. I don't. That doesn't bother me as much as what are we supposed to be afraid of? What are the motivations? You know.
So a couple things, the little bit of trivia I did read about this is super interesting because this, like, basically they started making this like immediately after the first one came out.
Okay.
So they did not like it. The first one, Nightmare on Elm Street, came out on November 9th, 1984. This one came out November 1st, 1985.
Holy shit.
Right. So it was like extremely rushed. So they didn't even have like, they had to like basically do everything from scratch. They didn't have Freddy's like makeup or anything. They had to bring in a new artist who only had images
from the like stills from the movie. Wow.
To work on. So like that, and they weren't even bringing Robert Englund back at first.
Oh, okay.
It was like they hired like a stuntman to do all his stuff, and they were like, they filmed like a couple scenes, and the director was like, "What the fuck is wrong with me? Like this is not going to work." And he fired he was literally like, "I don't know what the fuck was going through my head." He fired the guy and like brought back Robert Englund. I think he was like asking for more money or something, and they didn't want to give it to him, and they were just like, "Fuck that! Like we're not going to be able to do this without him." But this movie was basically like, it was like a hit or miss. Like I think it was like one of the first things that like New Line did.
Oh, really?
And it was like make or break. And obviously it made
Broke it.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, and I was like, wow, this was a hit. Like this was a big enough hit that they were able to like continue to like make films.
Right.
And I was like, that's crazy. I just kind of, I mean, it's silly to
Seems
assume
like Wes
that
Craven was not involved.
I'm sure that's why they had to do the makeup and all that shit. Like they didn't have access. Like I said, I forgot to read more of the trivia.
Yeah.
But like a lot of this stuff was like rushed. They didn't have a lot of time to put into production. And it's always super fascinating to me when that's the case for a movie, especially when it comes out the way this one does, where I'm like, this doesn't seem, I mean, this definitely seems like it's an outlier of the rest of the films, but it does not seem like it wasn't thought out at all.
It's not Halloween 3.
Oh, I don't remember which that one. Oh,
Season of the Witch.
Right. It's not quite that one. I do love Season of the Witch. I love that.
Oh no, great movie.
So much. It's
but
so
what I'm saying is like,
yeah.
why is it in the Halloween universe?
Yeah, I know. Like fucking Mario 3. I guess the third ones are just the ones that they're like.
Well, that has a story.
I know, but it wasn't.
Which I guess is basically the same thing.
I was gonna say. They made a game and then they were like, I don't know, just put Mario in it, and they were like, okay, well, whatever. We will never reference this again. But yeah, it's interesting that so much of it was like rushed, and I don't know. It reminds me, it's not the same, but it has a similar feel to it as like 976 Evil, where it's like it's weird and it's doing some shit, and you're like, what the fuck is going on? Like, and that I think that's what I like about it, and I kind of wish that like I do really like the idea that like you killed Freddy, so he has to come back as another person. Like he has to like he has to resorb himself into someone else, you know? Like I don't know, like I think it's really I like how this one, like I like the idea of there being like he's coming for you, or he'll become you, or like you'll become him. Like those being like the options is like even more terrifying. So I think this one is like I don't know, I like it a lot. I think there's just it's so dramatically over the top, and his screams, like, give that man a prize.
Seriously.
That is like insane. He's got the Boimler scream. It's like a little bit. It's slightly more masculine than Finn the human.
Oh yeah.
But like, yeah, it's definitely the Boimler scream.
I love his family is just like, why can't he sleep regular?
Mommy, why can't Jesse wake up like everybody else?
Oh, honey, he's all right. He's just having a bad dream.
The fucking what was it? Fu Manchu's cereal? What the fucking shit? The fucking claws. What the fuck? That's it. There's just that one scene with them.
Yep.
Nothing else. Fuck. And it's so like I think this is a movie where like this is like the subversive horror that I enjoy because you're really saying something and you're really even with like, you know, I don't know, like it's so wild to me that people can look at a horror movie or horror genres and be like, bad because don't like, and I'm like, what? Like, and I don't mean bad, like I don't enjoy these. Like that's fine. Like there's lots of horror that I don't enjoy.
But like a moralistic.
Right, but being like, you're a monster if you enjoy these movies. What the fuck is wrong with you? Like I don't
Are you joyless, Philip?
Oh man. But it's always so like I can't like there's such a deep connection between like queerness and even sex work and horror films, and like I think it's very important to talk about them because like a lot of subversive filmmaking is only possible because of horror and because of the horror genre, and part of that subversiveness is why sex work and queerness is folded into because there is like there's always going to be sort of an overlap. Like you're going to be able like and I think that's why a lot of like sex workers, especially in like 80s and like early 90s and probably 70s more than anything, why they were in films because there was like you wouldn't have to pay them as much and they'd be willing to do stuff but not like in an yes, in an exploitative way, but not like
wasn't it Frankenhooker where there were actual
they hired strippers to do this and they specifically got them into the guild,
Actors Guild,
so that they could, and I'm like, but that's like a specific thing where like that would not happen if a movie. I mean, like now there's some sort of like leanings towards that because of OnlyFans and like self-published porn that gets made, but like it's still not quite in the same sort of. You still have to be. It's so funny though because you can have. It's so wild because this is a thing that like kind of is hilarious to me because you can have like even in like what's that Russell Crowe priest movie? Was it the priest or what was it called? Where he's
the Pope's.
Oh yeah, the Pope
Exorcist.
Yeah.
Not the other Exorcist movie he did at the same time.
Yeah. But in that movie, there's a scene at the end, which I loved. This movie was stupid, but I loved this scene where they have like, there's something that happens and like blood explodes, and then there's just a naked lady covered in blood. While that is, you can show that on Netflix, you would not be allowed to show that on OnlyFans.
Oh, right.
Because you can't have blood or fake blood. So that's a very funny thing to me.
Why
and the reason why
isn't the Catholic Church showing this movie?
Well, the reason why you can't do things like that is because of credit card companies.
Yeah.
They don't allow those things. Right. And I'm like, that's very funny that Netflix, which is like...
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Only, like, you don't pay for Netflix through PayPal or anything else. Like, you have to use, like, your credit card or bank account information.
Crypto.
Like, yeah.
Unregulated fake currency. Yeah.
You have to, I'm like, what? Like, blockchain. That's so hilarious to me.
No, yeah, and I think...
But my point is that's why there will be more subversiveness in horror, because there will be things even in horror that you can't necessarily do in porn. Like,
Oh, right. And vice
because,
versa.
yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. So,
That's why there's a need for both.
exactly.
Well,
yes. No, but I agree, because you can blur the lines more easier if you're more fluid about what is what.
Well, and I brought up the Hays Code stuff.
Yeah.
Was it last movie? Or was it?
I think it was last.
No, it
movie.
was Substance.
Oh, yes.
Because I was talking
That's
about
what.
how.
Well, technically, that was the last movie. we watched, so yes.
Because Quaid's character doesn't suffer any consequences.
Right. Yeah.
No, but I think, all I watch these days is anti-imperial
right.
oriented things.
Yeah.
So that's where all my thinking is. So
Lebanese or oriented things.
And I've been trying to formulate this on my own. Like, I don't know how to talk about this without getting way in the weeds. I think it's easy to, I think things are set up, especially if you're drawn to, let's say, the creative side of how you approach
Right.
the world. You
Right.
know, if you're artistically inclined, if you're, what have you, your route towards understanding things, or your route towards interacting with your surroundings, which I think we both have, is why I'm saying it that way. In our this current society that we were born into, and whatever is the same about it now, I think it gets very talking about what's subversive
Yeah.
or transgressive.
Yes.
Is very muddied watered
Yes.
on purpose.
For sure.
And I was just watching Millennials Are Killing Capitalism. It was a conversation between Jared Ware, I think is the host's name, and Laura Sheehy, who every time I see her on anything I watch, it's so... She always says shit I'm dying to hear. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh
yeah.
my God, yes. Her analysis is so sharp and
It's always so
focused.
It's always so like rewarding, but like you're like, how did you do that?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
how are you able to formulate a sentence like that? I can't do it.
And as much as anything, I so admire her ability to stay focused in a conversation.
Yeah. I think because saying that someone's like articulate can be like
Racist
well,
coded.
yes. But it's like, it's not quite that. It's not like, I'm not saying you're articulate. I'm saying you're able to focus your, like, I wish there was a word like articulate. It was like, you're able to stay on point, focus your thoughts,
Right.
and say what you want to say.
Yeah.
So succinctly.
Yeah.
It's like, what's that like?
Right.
I'll spend
I wish I had an
and not say what I
Elegant
meant
way
to
to
say.
describe this form of eloquence.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, it always seems like it's people who are able to put their thoughts into very concise language is always like wizardry. Sorcery.
literally.
Anyway.
Because I'll think I did that, and then I'll listen back, and I'm like, oh my God,
No,
I missed. I didn't say like 3 words.
Yeah, there's like whole phrases that I'm notoriously, and this is a bad habit that I picked up because I thought it was poetic at one point in my life, like in my teens, right? I drop articles all the time, like they, the, and, a, it, like, so
Yeah.
I know I'm bad at that.
I'll just like think that I finish a sentence,
Right.
and I don't,
Right.
and I go on to the next one.
Right.
And I think because my brain is working so much faster than my mouth is,
Right.
I think I'm explaining the thing I just said, but what I am is I'm cutting myself off before I finish what I'm saying and
Because you're already
starting
on to the next thought. Yeah.
part.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, "Oh my God, what the fuck is wrong with
No,
me?"
and I think we enable one another that way because
Right, we do the thing where we know we're like, yeah.
and
And
that's
then
it.
we don't explain
we don't
further?
explain it to anybody else.
Wonderful.
Very good for a podcast. Very good for group conversations.
We have that twin thing. Like we're
We
twin.
can, yeah.
We can. I'll allow
We
it.
can has. No, I was going to say that. Anyway, Jared Ware was talking about this text, the settlers that I mentioned to you because he read that for another conversation. Anyway, he's referring to that text.
Mm-hmm.
I've read a little bit of it. Didn't get to this part, but he was talking about McCarthyism.
Okay.
And how and I'm not saying this is nothing, but like if all it took was a congressional hearing and like the threat of blackballing people and, obviously like the Rosenbergs were assassinated. But like compared to other revolutionary movements, if that's all it took to take the wind out of the sails of
Yeah.
an entire generation of
Yeah.
organizing, then there's no hope.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I'm saying that in the context of what is subversive and what is transgressive.
Right.
I also thinking this is what I was trying to say. There's another thread that I've been thinking about, which is in relationship to things like movies and what gets called pop culture.
Yeah. Right.
And just everything that, especially the U.S., but the West in general produces as entertainment,
Right.
to consume.
Yeah. Infotainment.
No,
I just wanted to say that.
that's fine. I just wanted to say that's not what I mean.
I'm sorry. I actually didn't mean to cough into the mic that time.
Well, I was thinking about entertainment, the word entertainment, and I'm like,
Yeah.
humans will entertain themselves. That's
For
not,
sure. Yeah,
we
yeah,
don't
yeah.
need an industry to feed us that. Hang on, let me finish the thought.
Yawning.
You said well, and then you yawned.
Yeah, I know, but you would stop. So I said, well.
So anything that is sold as entertainment is doing some political work.
Yeah, for sure.
Regardless of
whether it's intentional or not. Like,
Right.
yeah.
Regardless
I
of
did
the
intentional
message
quotes.
of a particular text or film or whatever,
Right.
the fact that it's being produced and marketed to you,
Yes.
that's a political
Correct.
act.
Yes. Well, I was just gonna say, like, I think this is a reason why. What?
I'm just laughing at myself.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
This I don't really know how to form it exactly, but like I think it was I can't remember. I think it was our last episode, the last of the month, or
Rain
it might have been the substance. I don't remember. But when I was talking about what Matt Damon was saying about how DVD sales impacted what you were basically allowed to. Like the lack of DVD sales means that if you don't make like double your budget back at the very least on
Like the first
opening weekend, then you're a liability essentially, and so like things don't get made if there's not more of a guarantee. But in that sense, that's why independent media is so important.
Yeah.
However, it's like things are moving faster
Right.
than what folks are able to catch up with in some ways.
Also,
so
by design.
It is by design, but I think that there's also like it's one of the reasons why things like TikTok are so popular because people can make things independently. People can make things that are very with a more narrow focus. More niche things, more specific content that doesn't need to have like a 15-minute video. It doesn't need a lot of editing. It doesn't need a lot of things.
Right.
But this is also how you're able to lose interest. Like, people aren't going to go to the theater because if you don't have something that's not going to hold their interest because they have something that holds their interest right at home.
Yeah.
So, one of the reasons that, a lot of things, people, you have, missed opportunities. And I think a lot of the reasons why in this day and age people go to the movies, I don't mean people my age, but younger people.
Okay.
I think a lot of the reasons why they go to the movies is because other people go to, if it's something they think that other people are going to talk about, they're going to want to see it. It's not necessarily about whether or not it's a good movie. It's going to be I don't want to be out of the conversation.
Right. Who did I see? I don't know. I didn't know the person, but it was someone quote tweeting an influencer who was like, I love watching a movie. If I'm bored, I'll just look at my phone.
Yeah.
I'll put on a movie.
Yeah.
And they're like, you may not like watching movies.
Yeah. Right. And I think, I think some of that is due to the fact that there's not everything feels bad. And I think sometimes what people mistake is because it's I have to tire myself out to fall asleep. I can't just lay, some people have the gifted ability of saying I'm tired and then they lay down and they fall asleep. Never have I say I'm tired and then I have to wait 3 hours for my body to shut down. At least. I usually have to distract myself a little bit or the night terrors will start to come. So sometimes a distraction is needed in order for me not to completely spiral. Right. And I think that's another reason why it's so funny because you'll see these studies where people are people that are on their phones experience more depression, and people be phones make people depressed. And I'm no, people that are on their phones more are likely seeing more things that are very bad, and they're more connected. They're more aware, and that's why they're sadder. Right. Because the more aware you are of the realities of the world, the more hopeless and helpless you feel because you don't know how to fix it. Right. And then it'll be well, just having a phone means that you're killing people. And you're cool. So the way that keeps me connected is also a bad thing. So, and then there's so many places for you to go. And I think that that's another reason why media is so hard to make anymore, because it's so hard to actually make a statement without people feeling bad enough to get mad at you. People want a distraction. Yeah. And so that's the kind of movies that are being made. And to the point where I watched this was at least 2 years ago. It was when I was trying to do more, I was trying to, get more into, making art videos, and, I was completely autistically misunderstanding putting yourself out there and all that shit. But I watched this video that was talking about how to edit to make people basically interested. And it said that every 9 seconds, something has to change. And that caused me to start to look at how movies and films and television were edited now versus back then. And that's one of the reasons why that's one of the big reasons why I don't enjoy films as much now, is because they're edited in a way that implies that they either don't have enough, like we watched that whole entire, oh God, what was it? The snowman killer or whatever.
Yeah, this is Snowman.
The Snowman.
Is the name
Okay.
of the film.
Okay. We watched the entire thing about the terrible editing, which I highly recommend that movie, or sorry, that YouTube video talking about the way that movie was edited, just because it's like a really great way to break down why sometimes a movie will feel like it's very bad, even though when it looks like it's a fully studio made film, you're like, wow, how is this so bad when like stars are in it and it's got like, you know, so many people they know are in this movie, and yet it feels like it was made on someone's phone in 1992. You're like, that wasn't even a thing.
He's done multiple videos breaking down the editing of particular films, and that's one reason I go on about it.
Right. But also
he did one on the Suicide Squad.
Yeah, I think that might have been one of the first times I was aware of you watching his stuff. Was that I was like, huh. But this is also, I also edit things. I edit things pretty consistently, and I pay attention to that kind of thing. I'm editing videos I'm editing multiple videos every single week. I spend hours and hours of my time editing content, creating content. So I'm not just speaking on editing as like theoretically,
like I do.
No,
I'm serious.
no. You edit.
I edit
podcast.
audio, but it's a different medium.
It's a little bit different, but it is. But I will say this: dialogue plays a huge impact on how you edit. Video. And I'm going to tell you, I love editing. Well, I don't love it, but I love editing audio compared to editing video. It's like editing video is fine, but like it's a beast. Like editing audio, you just and you can splice it together real well. But video, like sometimes, oh God. Anyway, whatever. I wish I could get more. The only reason I don't do like more crazy, interesting edits is because my computer does not have the capacity. Like it will just like I even use and this is going to be my little spiel. I downloaded, because I was using like a cracked or whatever version of Premiere like CS6. And it was fine, but it's like, it doesn't do what you want it to do. It's really hard. It's really laggy. I was just like so fed up with it. And I was looking at different options, and people were saying DaVinci Resolve is like really great. It's really great. It's a free software. And I was like, whatever. And I was like, I guess I'll try it. Insane. This shit is free, and it's insane. It's so much better than Premiere. I could pay $300 to get everything
for Resolve,
and that's it.
Yeah,
it's
one-time
purchase of $300, and you lifetime basically. I will eventually do that. Right now, I'm like the free version's working great for me. But
you don't have the $300.
Well, I don't, but I just mean like I could probably scrounge it up if I really needed it, but. Like, I'm like, I don't feel like I need to like worry about that.
Yeah.
There's a couple things that I'm not excited about. Like the interface is similar, but I do have to Google things a lot to be like, oh fuck, I don't know how to do this thing. Like, like I had to Google like how to blur like images or like blur things out, which is fine. But another thing that happens is sometimes it will just not work. I just have to restart it, and then it works fine.
Oh,
but like
wild.
And I just have to close it out and restart it. I think it just gets laggy sometimes if I have it open too long, and then I try to do something new. It's like, I don't want to do that. And I'm like, fuck. And then I just restart it, and it works fine. So like it's not perfect, but also like
it's free.
Premiere is the same way.
Well, and you're using a 10-year-old version, right?
I'm using a 10-year-old version, but also like I really don't want to have to use, because they
now it's all cloud.
It's
grift.
Cloud based now, but you have to pay yearly.
Okay.
Or monthly. Like every single, like you don't, it doesn't like stop at any point. But they also like one of the reasons why people like started dropping off of things like that is because
you have to
they
agree
basically said we're just anything that you use that's on our devices we will feed to AI.
Mm-hmm.
And people are like, what? So like all their artwork, all the things that they're working, all the things that they privately own, Adobe said, oh, no, we're just going to feed that to AI. So people were like, I don't know how that's going, but like, I don't, anyway, whatever, blah, 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 blah. But that's my spiel. If you want to edit stuff and have it look good, you want to be able to have high resolution, like really great shit. DaVinci Resolve is free.
Yep.
I don't think you can't do like super high def shit, but you can have like I export HD.
Yeah, you can.
And I export HD and I have to like literally make it like the smallest version of HD that I can because it will export it such a huge file that it takes like hours to upload like a 9-minute clip.
Right.
And I'm like, oh,
yeah.
it's insane. So like I have to like actively like make it less
small.
Yeah, make it smaller.
It.
Like I can make it like two.
DaVinci Resolve.
Yeah,
Check it out.
But that's one of the reasons I think that editing has changed because it's trying to keep people's attention to the point where it's like losing the plot, sort of.
Well, and I've said before, like that's the difference between content creation and making a piece of art.
Right.
And I hate to be. No, I don't like being that guy, but I mean, I did very much like being that guy for about 20 years. But
no, like I hate saying content creation because I feel like it lumps me into a category of people that I don't.
Yeah.
I'm not, but it's a way for me to say what I do without having to constantly be like, I make fetish porn.
No.
Which also engenders something that I don't do, which is like, you know, which is also a type of thing that that is in whatever, whatever.
The language is imprecise. Always. And I don't think that there's not overlap.
No, the same. Yeah. I think that's why it's like people be like, I'm not a content creator, I'm an artist.
And which is not to say there's not craft to either.
Yes.
Or skill, you know. Like editing a segment for a news program, you know, that
for sure. Yeah.
Is gonna be it's a specific language that's probably more akin
to Exactly. Yes. But that's exactly it. Like who are you editing for and what are you saying with your editing? Like in this, I talked about this with like, this is something, well, maybe I didn't talk about this. Maybe I just talked about it in my own head. This is something I've been thinking about a lot with like, watching The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. I'm like, I love it because especially like as someone who's like started editing, like I worked on editing sound for a bit, you know? So it made me very much sharper to when things are like being pieced together and don't necessarily line up perfectly. Yeah. I think you could catch it if you're listening, but I don't think you realize it as much until like that's the thing that you're doing and you're trying to blend things smoothly so you can hear when other people are blending not so smoothly.
Well, and I think because of reality TV, it's much more commonplace so people's
Yes.
Maybe don't notice it as much is what I mean.
They don't notice it as much, but I think it's like people also, I think sometimes, like it's become commonplace to edit out any silence. So like if someone's like pausing for effect, a lot of times that gets edited out. So it's like, it's all like very rapid talking music when there's not dialogue, things happening. But it's very funny. Like there was one where it's like, they were, you know how they have the like 2-camera thing where they're just like in the chair and they're talking or whatever. And oh my God, does that two camera is like to the camera?
They're speaking to the camera. Yeah.
I've been confused because I'm like, am I using it right? Because there's only one camera.
I see.
I'm so stupid.
It also gets called, I mean, especially in the reality context, I the confessional.
Yeah.
Because
right. Yeah.
I think that started with Real World.
Yes. But anyway, like there's like a scene on Secret Lives of Mormon Wives where someone was like saying something, and it's them talking in the confessional, and they say something. It cuts to something and then goes back to them. It's two different outfits that they have on in this sentence that they're speaking, where it's showing them talking to the camera, not just like backgrounds. It's not just using their. I was like, that's a I'm like, they just spliced together two different conversations.
Wild.
And sometimes I understand. Sometimes they have to do that contextually because sometimes they have to be like they'll say like, like, I don't understand why she did that. And so they'll be like, I don't understand why Taylor, like, texted everyone that text message. So like they need it to be more specific. And like, I get,
yeah.
Like sometimes they have to splice things together to give it more context than it maybe had in the whole conversation, but like in the segment they're using. They have to like, so I get it. Or they'll be like the way they'll just, maybe she said it in a different order. So they're splicing it up. I get that. All that I totally understand. But it's like when you realize that people are like splicing things together and making things like, but it also people, like you said, people notice it less, but I think it just becomes more like people just don't listen for it. People think that that's just how people talk.
Right.
And I'm like, that's not it. That's not how people talk at all.
Right.
And it's also something I think about like with autism and the way that like people will say like people who are autistic like have like a certain way of talking. Like I'm very aware of that because the way like I was like, I don't think that's me. And then I started watching videos and like editing sound and I'm like, what am I doing? What is the speech pattern that I have? Because I break in the weirdest places. I repeat myself in times it does not make any sense. I say the same shit, don't even realize it, miss words. There's so many things I do. I'm like, what the fuck? What am I doing? I'm like, if I didn't know what I was trying to say, I wouldn't know what I was trying to say. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
No wonder people listen to me and they're like, I don't understand. I'm like, I was so fucking clear. I wasn't clear. Turns out I'm never clear on what I'm saying, apparently.
You've heard of Everclear? Get ready for Neverclear.
Neverclear. But anyway, that being said, those types of factors play into the kind of things that people are able to sit through, able to watch, able to stomach. And it's also like, I mean, it's one of those things where like people talk about media literacy and how there's a lack of media literacy, which I do believe, but I think that it's more due to the fact that people aren't like, people will be like, people are dumber now. And I'm like, are they dumber? Or could it be that the way that media has changed, we have not caught up like socially and scholastically to how things like the reason
we haven't dealt with the creation of the internet.
Correct. Yeah.
Intellectually.
Right.
Culturally. Like,
and people
hyperlinking to things.
Well, people will have like computer classes, that people will have computer class. Like this is how to like do stuff. I mean, I don't know if that happens now because people have iPad kids. So I don't know if it still happens. Yeah. But like that was something I never experienced. I was never, in a computer class or a typing class.
I took because
I was homeschooled.
Basic. And by basic, I mean the language called BASIC.
Right.
Programming class at the YMCA in the early 80s.
Yeah. So there was stuff like that. But like nowadays, because things have shifted so drastically to online.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons, like people will be like, boomers don't know how to do anything. And I'm like, right, because no one taught them.
Right.
Like the reason, like you expect people... Because you grew up around technology, you expect other people to have the same understanding of it that you do as someone that grew up around it.
I don't know why you're in the library if you don't know how to send something to a printer. But I think similarly, we've talked about this, that a lot of people, I see people tweeting about Zoomers and Boomers having that
Yes.
in common.
Yes. Right, because no one taught them because they
Right.
expect like one of the reasons why like Gen Z is so bad at computers is because they grew up around them. And one of the reasons why boomers are so bad at computers is because they didn't grow up around them.
Right.
One of the reasons why millennials are very good at technical things, technical aspects of things, is because they grew up learning about these things.
Right,
They didn't have in between not having it and having it.
Like
so
if you've lived through it, you think of it as
Correct.
one continuity. But
Right.
Where computers were when I was a kid, I'm young Gen X, and so yeah.
Right, but like the thing
It's also the rapidity is exponential. So like the curve of like, okay,
But it's
computing from the 80s to like from the early days of the home computer to the internet blossoming.
right.
That's
right.
20 years.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot changed.
Right.
And then from the early 90s to
Right.
Another 20 years. So the 90s to 2010s, ridiculous.
Right.
Worlds of difference. So if you stop learning about computing in like 1990
Yes.
and then woke up in 2010, you'd be like, where the fuck am I?
Exactly. Right. Because right. But like you said, it was like a repetition of learning new things. So there's an aspect.
And you're so used to things falling off out of usage because
Yeah,
things
and have to
change so
right.
quickly that you don't have. There's no, like you're saying, there's no time to pass on a knowledge.
Right.
Necessarily.
That, but also it's like, I mean, there's aspects of it. Like I know that people that are like 10, 15 years younger than me are much better at using TikTok. Like I remember when I first started using TikTok, people were talking about how like people would have like tutorials on like how to make, how to do video. And I'd be like, what the, oh my God. And I like couldn't even figure out how to put text on the screen because it was so completely.
Which is me anytime I have to do anything like that.
And it was like I felt so I like couldn't figure out like time, like I couldn't figure out anything, and I felt so fucking overwhelmed and stupid that I just was like, never mind, I'm not gonna do this.
Mm-hmm.
And then cut to now where like I'm not great at TikToks, but I understand the general language. But at the same time, people who like Gen Z is now getting to the point where they're like, what the fuck is Gen Y thinking? Because people just a few years younger than them are relying on Chat GPT and don't even know how to use Google.
Right.
Like literally are like, why wouldn't you ask Chat GPT to find this for you? And you're like, that's literally a Google search. And they're like, but Chat GPT can tell you, which is fascinating and terrifying because and I mean, I think, and I will relate it back to the movie and things and the theme of the month. But like the problem with Google that you used to have was that like a lot of the search results were going to be paid and you had to like make sure your search was correctly worded, refined. You would have to make sure that you were looking for like specific, I mean, if you're looking for a recipe or something, whatever the fuck. But if you're like looking for academic information, like you have to make sure that you're like on JSTOR or you're looking, you're Googling specific things, because if you're just like, hey, I want to find something on, Israel versus Palestine, you're not going to, I mean, depending on what you've searched previously and things like that, you're not just going to have something pop up that's like, here's what we're talking about, like here's the truth of it all. You're going to find a lot of things that are like propaganda and TikToks and people talking about stuff, and you're going to get confused. You're not going to know what you're supposed to know. But similarly, Chat GPT makes things up.
Right.
And even like when you Google things and you have like the AI breakdown, it is an amalgam of all the things that it's picking up. So it'll tell you literally contradicting information in the same sentence.
Right.
Because it's just trying to break it down, but it doesn't understand what it's breaking down. And that's essentially how ChatGPT works. It has like hallucinations.
Right.
So it makes things up. It'll just make up information. It will lie. It will, and there's like a 3%, like 3% consistently is like not true. And like 15%, like, and that's broken down, like to where it's like anywhere from like 25% of things that it says are not necessarily factual. So like it can be like 3% to fucking 25% of what it's saying isn't true. Like depending on how it's broken up and like broken down. I don't really understand how that's the case, because I was like looking at things and it was like, I was like looking at a study that was recently done like this year, or not this year, last year. And it was saying that like 25% of the time it makes this up, like 15% of the time it makes this. So I'm like, but it was like, so overall like 3%. And I'm like, but that doesn't. So I was like very confused. I was very confused. I was like, I don't. But that being said, people are relying on it so much, but like not actually critically thinking about it, because no one has been taught.
Well, and it's very similar to
that. Right. But in the same way that people weren't being taught that like Google isn't just going to give you an accurate answer.
Right.
It's going to tell you the most popular thing that's searched, which sometimes is the most popular because that is what is paid to be at the top.
Right. Exactly.
So it's what people click on the most. So it's like, chicken and egg kind of situation.
Yeah. No, all I was going to say is that exactly that. That's what it was like when search engines were new.
Right. And it's like,
people were like, oh, well,
right. So it's like this thing where it's like, right, you have to like continuously, but these are things that I don't know. People don't get taught because I've never been in school.
Right. Well,
so I've had to teach myself so many things because I'm so worried about not fitting into the real world. And I'll be like, right, I know this because I looked it up, because I read it, because I looked it up, because I searched it, because I listened to people who experienced it. And people will be like, okay. And I'm like, you don't do that. Okay. How do you learn things? Like, it's funny because people used to always say that to me. When I would say I was homeschooled, people would be like, how do you learn things? And I'd be like, I don't understand the question. Like, and now people will be like, oh, how do you know that? And I'm like, well, I looked it up. And they're like, okay. And I'm like, do you not look, you don't look things. Oh, I see. You don't search. You just.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing.
You wait for your phone to osmosisly feed you information or whatever. I guess. The algorithm will tell me what I need to know. Yeah.
No, seemingly.
I don't ask. I just let the algorithm deliver what it will.
Yeah. No, I think, and that's the thing, the discourse around, we talked about this with, what's her name, Lady
Dynamite?
No.
Gaga? I'm being serious. I don't know.
You do. Oh, I thought you were just giving me some of my own medicine.
No, because I don't know.
No, the TikToker.
Oh, Miss K?
Miss K. Because it's Lady Miss K.
Yeah.
What it is. Yeah, people, I mean, oh, God.
Yeah.
We've gotten so...
I know.
Galaxy brain with this whole...
That's all we've done recently.
No, I know, and that's fine. I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about that's anti-Semitic. Most people don't go to school to learn how to learn.
Yeah, right.
So, to review, the solid waste, those nutrients not absorbed in the lining of the stomach, the large intestine, the small intestine, and the alimentary canal are passed out through the colon. Liquid nutrients are then carried through an elaborate system of filtering, aided by the pancreas, liver, and gallbladder, or collected in the bladder to be expelled at a later time. And this entire process is kept moving through the circulatory system, the center of which is the heart.
Yeah!
4 chambers, Just like the human heart, really. From the body to the right auricle.
This was always
Right
a thing that was very
ventricle,
confusing
pulmonary
because
arteries,
people always
the
told me
lung.
that I needed to go to college
There,
because I
trades
needed
will
the life
come down.
experience. And I was like, that is not a reason to spend thousands upon thousands of dollars.
Correct.
And they're like, well, how else are you supposed to get life experience? And I'm like, I'm
doing
being
life?
alive? I don't fucking know. And I'm like, I think, and that's a thing that's like very confusing for me because I don't, there seems to be a lot of, like, how else do you know what to do unless you ask somebody to tell you what to do?
Yeah.
And that's never
Right.
that's never been something I'm interested in. That's been something that I've fought against my whole life.
Right.
And have actively not I'm like, no, I want to do my own thing because I want to. Like, I feel better. And people would ask me like things like when I'm like, I enjoy doing art. I enjoy doing things. People will be like, how do you not get bored if you don't have a job? And I'm like, what are you talking about? They're like, I'm so bored if I'm not working. And I'm like, who the fuck are you?
Who says this?
This is what people have. Like, I know of people, specifically, like when I had my bank job, there were people that had enough money that they did not need to work.
Oh, I see.
And
Yeah.
they would but I'm not just speaking on that. I'm saying like friends growing
No.
like when
Yeah.
friends growing up, like in adulthood, I'd be like, God, I hate like how things feel. And they're like, but how do you not feel bored if you're not working? And I'm like, what are you talking? I'm like, I don't feel bored ever.
Yeah.
I don't really understand.
I don't
the
relate to
question.
that, but that also lets me know that we don't need capitalism
Yes.
for people
correct.
to be motivated to do things.
That's the thing. That's what taught me that. I'm like, people actively, if there are
People want to
people
be useful.
who do not need to work, who literally have enough money that they could sit on their ass and do nothing for the rest of their lives, that live in this town of Champaign-Urbana, and they choose
not
to
to.
go
Yeah.
to work because they don't have hobbies or a life, and that's just what they do, and they're happy with that. And they take their job extremely seriously and will cut a bitch over it. And I'm
sure.
like,
Yeah, more
okay,
than somebody else. Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
You do you, I guess. Like I worked with a lady who was like old, retirement age, didn't retire. Her husband died, left her with plenty of money so that she never had to work a day in her life. She came to work every day, and she would absolutely tear you a new asshole if you made her job harder.
Yeah.
And if you did anything because she wanted her job to be a certain way. And I'm like, she liked me, of course, because that everybody like that always does. Because if you come to me and you're like, I want this done a certain way because that's how I like it, I'm like, okay, I'll do it that way. And they're like,
Thank you for being honest.
Oh, right. There was this one woman that I worked with, and she literally said, look, I like this done this way. This is how I like it. I don't like it another way. I wanted, and it was literally just how to staple something. She was like, I like them done this direction, this part of the paper. I like it done that way. If it's not done that way, I will correct it. So it helps me if you just do it that way. And I said, that's fucking reasonable as hell. She said, it's just how I like it.
Yeah.
I want my work to be uniform.
Thank you for
it
being
bothers me
self-aware.
when it's not.
Yeah.
So that's how I want it done. And I said, girl, I got you.
Can't fault you for
Always
that.
did it that way. So she would come to me and she would ask me for help on things. She would come to me. And people hated it. Because she was a bitch, because she asked people to do things that they didn't have to do.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, she's asking you to do it.
Right.
She's asking you for a reason that isn't do it because you're supposed to. She's saying, hey, this will help me out.
She's also not
And she's not telling you you're doing a bad job. She's saying,
right.
I need my
Or-
work to be uniform.
Talking shit about
Yes.
you when you don't do it the
Correct.
way that she
Yes.
needs it to be done, even though she hasn't specified that explicitly.
Right. Yes, correct. Exactly. And she was like, so she would literally, like, she would come to me. Shocker. She was, I think, the only black woman that worked there.
Huh.
It's crazy that was the case. So she would come to me when she needed something done specifically because I would do it the way that she asked, because she would say, I really want it. I like it done this way. Would you do it that way? And I would say, yeah, you're literally asking me. I'm like, it's not it. And the thing is, it doesn't take you longer to staple it like horizontally on the top than it does vertically on the side. Like she was just like, I want it done horizontal on the top in the left corner. That's how I want it done. And I said, I mean, that's how I would do it normally. You know, I might paper clip it instead of staple it, but we were supposed to staple. So I'm like, yeah, that seems reasonable. She was like, I don't want them messy. I don't want them. She's like, I'll redo it. It's going to be more time on me. It's going to piss me off. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. Because I probably would do the fucking same thing. Because I also like things uniform in a specific way. Anyway, whatever. I don't remember why I went on that rant. But, yeah. Oh, yeah. Just
People
saying
who
people would
work.
come to me. Because if they were like, I like this done a certain way. Because that's how I am. And I like it that way. And I'd be like,
That's refreshing.
that's fine. I don't know why
Thank you.
that's weird. I don't know why that's weird.
Right.
You like, it's one thing if someone's like, I want you to do this in triplicate just because I don't want to have to do it. No, I'm not going to do it for you.
Oh,
if you
yeah.
come to me and you say, hey, I
It
like
helps
things
me.
broken down in this way because that is how I was trained, or like that's how it was done. That's the template we were supposed to use. Now they don't care, but it helps me because that's what I'm used to. I'm like,
Yeah, if you
my
come to
God,
me and
yes,
say that
absolutely, I would love to make your job
you
easier.
only understand that an email has been read if you put it into a folder named It's Read. Mm-hmm. Nope.
Well, it's not. Yeah, you create a red folder so that you can take your unread emails and put them into the red folder so you know to read them. Then you can put them in the done folder. Or then you can put them in the like to do folder and then you do them and then you can put them in the. I'm not going to do that.
As
because
long as
I
you
don't
tell
know.
me that that's what makes your life easier, I'm happy to do that for you.
I mean, if that's how, if I was doing your emails and you were like, this is how I do, yeah, I'll do that. If you're telling me how to set my inbox up, and telling me that I have to do it that way because that's how you do it and you can't trust me as a person if I don't make a red folder so that I can put my red emails into the red folder, because how else will they know that I've read them? And I said, because they go from unread to read. And they said, I don't think I can trust you. Okay, I don't think we can work together. I
That's
will
fine.
quit.
At least that's
I will
honest,
quit.
too.
Well, that's fair. I don't think I can trust you that you can do this job. And I said, I don't think I can work here. And then it was somehow a surprise. But whatever. Anyway.
And then it's also somehow a surprise that they're having some kind of crises.
Anyway, my point in all of this, talking about how media is changing rapidly. We don't teach about it. We don't talk about it. We just expect people to rapidly change and understand and know the rules and know how everything works when, one, there's misinformation. Capitalism creates an environment where the more money
There's
you
also
have,
disinformation.
yes, the more money you have, the easier it is to be seen and more visible. There's disinformation. And this is a thing you talk about a lot, where you say when people are, I mean, maybe not a lot, but you will mention this, where it's like someone will be like, I have an idea, let's do XYZ. As if it's the first time anyone's had
Yeah.
this thought.
Yeah.
They are the only people that thought of it. They never looked into anything to see if it's
white
been
people
done
love doing that.
or ask questions
Yeah.
or get any information. And they're just saying, why aren't more people talking about this? That's also something that I think is very big with queer people. And there's like, it's this big, like a lot of like TikTok discourse where there are people, like a lot of young people are like lesbians are gay women only. And there's a lot of people that are like, a lot of lesbians throughout history have been more gender nonconforming. And so people have, you know, because language has blossomed more, there are now more terms for people who are lesbians than the original term, which was just a lady who likes a lady.
Right.
But there are things like masculine, butch, there are transmasculine, there's people who are non-binary, there are people who are attracted to women, you know, all women, regardless
Where's
of
the
whether or
room
not.
for masked trans lesbians?
No, but there are trans masc lesbians, and
I'm sure.
lesbians, or like specifically young lesbians, are like, men can't be lesbians. That's just a fact. And so there's lots of stuff like that where like there's no seeming room
Yeah.
for like there to be like, this has existed for longer than you have.
Right.
And that's a thing that doesn't seem to really enter people's heads, especially when talking about queerness, identities, and like the way language changes. And so you have to be more open and fluid because language changes more rapidly, as we've seen with the internet, as we've seen with media, as we've seen with queerness and labels, and how last year at this time there were completely different fears in queer people's minds than there are now, because last year at this time there were some, not all, but some more protections for queer people than there are anymore. They're trying to do an erasure of queer people, which does line up with an erasure of sex workers as well. And this fits into horror because one of the ways that they do that is through censorship. And censorship will affect sex workers, queer people, and horror the most. And so all of these things, like horror, and you could say, big deal, but it's not just going to affect the horror that we have coming out in the future. It's going to affect the horror that we've already seen and that we already love. And it's going to make it where people are, like, if censorship happens to the way that they want it to happen, in the sense of redefining what obscene means. They're trying to redefine they're trying to like constitutionally redefine obscenity.
Yeah. It should be easily done because it's so loosely defined already.
Right. So in doing that,
And very little protection.
the people that will be harmed are the people that are living more subversive lifestyles. So queer people, sex workers, trans people. I mean, I know queer and trans is, but women, anybody, like single people, single mothers, like people who are living marginalized lifestyles are going to be affected more. And horror is one of the biggest ways for those types of conversations to make it even a little bit to the mainstream. And that's one of the reasons why horror is so revered by queer people. It's why it's so revered by sex workers, because it's a way for us to get our voice out there when other people would not hear us.
Right. But to that point, the horror that is, I guess let's say that being uplifted the most right now is very...
Yes.
It's not a great, for lack of a better term, conservative.
Yeah.
In its messaging.
Well, some of it, yeah.
Well, I'm just thinking of things like, all the Conjuring shit.
Yes. Right.
And all the things that have tried to cash in on that popularity where it's all very Catholic.
Because there are a few things. I haven't seen it yet, but I know Sinners is about, like, it's very black. Like it stars black people. And it's very racial in a, good way. But like and it's very sexual as well. So it's something where it's a very interesting, comedy. It's like, it feels like an I'm interested to watch it because it does feel like an outlier.
Yeah.
And so things like that will be not seen if obscenity laws are defined.
And also, to be clear, this has always been the case.
Yes.
There are things we don't know about that exist,
Correct.
right? They got made. We're lucky if they somehow got preserved.
Right.
But again, this is another sort of period where, because of the move to streamers, if it didn't get a physical release, it's going to vanish from...
Right, because there are some things that never got released on DVD. There are some things that were only... Well, you said it never got a release. So I
said physical media.
Right, but I just mean, like, there's stuff that only exists on VHS. Stuff that only exists on DVD.
Right.
And now there are things that only exist on the streaming platforms with
Right.
which they were produced that have been taken down.
Right.
So there's no way to view them.
Right. Those are even more ephemeral
Yeah.
than a VHS copy.
Yes, exactly.
Or
And
a
that's
DVD.
terrifying. That's terrifying to think
Yeah.
of, because queer media, queer cinema, queer films, queer documentaries, queer stories need to be able to be accessed regardless of what the law says, right? And something that's very important to mention, and this is something I have to do more reading on, because I just know what sex workers online that I follow are saying, but like one of the first things to happen with the rise of fascism and the Holocaust was the criminalization and removal of sex work and purity. And then it was queer people. Like it comes in waves. So
I
like,
always forget the guy's name, but he was German
of course,
during the time of the rise of the Third Reich, and
it-
all his work was destroyed. But
Right.
he was one of the first people to document and
Yes.
and work with gender nonconforming people.
Yeah,
in a
Yes, yes.
serious way to
Yes.
like not. I mean, he did work on a pathology, but he didn't. Not in a way that said they weren't the gender that they said they were.
In 1896, Dr. Magnus Hirschfeld proposes that this spectrum of sexual and gender diversity is natural, and the way to deal with this is to embrace it.
right. Yeah. So, and this is something that I don't remember if I've said that. I know that you and I have talked about this, but something that's very important to remember and very important to understand about the Holocaust, specifically what like the Third Reich, what Hitler did. People think that fascism in that way, that Hitler created it. You need to know. You need to know that it was specifically modeled and designed by what happened here on Turtle Island.
Yeah.
They loved that so much. They were such a fan of it. They wanted to recreate it. So it did not come out then. It was not birthed then. It took a new form. So colonialism specifically is responsible for what happened at the Holocaust.
Correct.
Not in a roundabout way. Directly, it is responsible.
No, absolutely.
So this is something to think about. This is one of the reasons why I get fired the fuck up when people are like, language doesn't exist for what we are. No one's ever existed like this before. They did. Your ancestors, your white ass fucking ancestors, killed them,
Right.
destroyed them, and criminalized it. And until I believe it was the 1970s, it was illegal for natives to practice their ceremonial cultural traditions. They were not allowed to practice their religion. They were not allowed to practice their ceremonies. They were not allowed to bread dance. They were not allowed to stomp dance. They were not allowed to jingle dance. They were not allowed to do these things until the fucking 70s. So these things existed. These things were criminalized. These things were taken. These things were erased. I mean, we're still here. We still exist, obviously. But that's the thing that needs to be understood, is like criminalizing something it's not going to erase it, but it doesn't mean that like you're going to like, because people will be like, oh, how do I say this? I'm getting big brain now.
Yeah.
So like the Holocaust was legal, right?
Oh,
That's
right.
the thing. Criminalizing something isn't just done when something's bad. It's also done when something is to be erased. It's also done when you want to erase a subset of people, when you want to harm marginalized people. And you see this in places like California, where they put spikes on the street so homeless people can't sleep, where they, even here where they like, or I think it's here, I don't know, the places where they fine you for sleeping on a bench, for being homeless,
Car camping.
Things like, yes, like those things being criminalized. Who is that helping? That's not helping anyone. It's not helping people get off the streets. It's not helping people not be homeless. It's criminalizing a subset of very marginalized people.
Homeless legislation is some of the most disgusting,
absolutely dehumanizing,
insidious, and it's so wild to me that anybody...
Like, when people are like, this is what evil is, I'm like, yeah. Evil to me, like, I hate when people are like, this is what evil is. But, like, if you want to talk about something that's evil, it's criminalizing homelessness. Like,
yeah,
there can be no justification for it.
Just to be explicit, you're making it illegal to not pay for a human basic need.
Yeah.
Basic human need.
Yeah. Right.
So.
Yeah.
I guess put me in jail where I'm not paying for it at least.
Like, right. And it's the thing where it's like, anyway, I won't go too crazy. But that's why the need for, I think that's why horror and queer are so intertwined.
Queer what?
Queer living people, everything. Queerness, yeah. They're so intertwined because they are equally, I mean, I think queerness has gotten more of a mainstream, luckily, more mainstream depiction in the past, 20 years than it ever has before. At least in a positive way. Like, people can exist and be queer on TV and not just be killed. But historically speaking, horror and queerness have both been so subversive that they're a place where a lot of times, like, even, fucking Elvira. I mean, I know that she's more like, full on lesbian, like things like that. Like that, there is a reason why a lot of queer people and a lot of more subversive alternative people love horror. And it's not because there's a sickness. It's not because there's something wrong with them. It's because it is a place that says that you are going to be treated like everyone else in this film, in this story. You're going to be treated the same. You're going to get the same kind of storyline. You may even come out. Yeah.
The only one living.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question to help us think about alternative futures, let's say. Like, part of it is the romanticization of subversive and transgressive literature and art and media. I definitely have a lot of that. That's where you start a lot of times, right?
Yeah.
And I think this is particularly in my lifetime anyway. You can see that with the mainstreaming of queerness. Is what is it when these things on the surface quit becoming transgressive? What is left?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the question is, like, I think for a lot of us, we're almost incapable to think past that stage to the next.
Yeah.
We will unintentionally recreate those dynamics if we don't design against that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Is part of the point. So what could be what would a transgressive media look like after queer and trans people and gender nonconforming people aren't policed and murdered and disappeared?
Yeah. Yeah.
What happens when black folks are equal?
Yeah.
When the First Nations of this continent are
Yeah.
in charge of the land.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's left? I think there's plenty.
Oh, right. Yeah,
I don't.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think a lot of people, in a lot of ways, especially white folks,
Oh, yeah.
even if they're not thinking of their own personal,
Yeah.
like, there's nothing to them. There's nothing left. There's just nothing romantic about
Yeah.
such
Yeah.
future.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
That's my closing statement.
Would you
Nightmare on
recommend?
Elm Street 2, good movie. Check it out. Yeah, I don't think and it stands on its own. I don't
Yeah,
think
yeah,
you need,
No.
You don't need to know anything about
Nope.
the first one.
Yeah. I think it's good.
I mean, watch the first one too.
Yeah.
I'm in there.
For sure. Yeah. I like them all. But yeah. Episode 1 of
Get ready
Pride.
for more of.
Yeah, we're gonna be deep diving.
Sorry, guys. Sorry, not sorry.
I mean, it is because like this is my day consists of me trying to create, edit, and
Disseminate.
pornography that doesn't fall within the confines of what you would assume is pornography. Create media that's safe for work so that people will look at my
Be not safe for
pornography.
work.
Talking about and looking at things that have to do with the secret lives of Mormon wives, and reading and paying attention to sex workers and legislation that affects them. Like in Sweden, it was just the law was just passed that it's now criminalized.
What
That
is?
sex work is now criminalized. And
Oh, cool.
you are not allowed to. There's no. I think it's Sweden. Yeah. It's criminalized. You're not allowed, like, basically no custom or content or live camming shows they're criminalized now. It's illegal to do those.
Like Sweden, I guess.
Right. So things like that, like that, and then learning my native language. That's my all day, every day. So I'm bouncing back and forth constantly between like absurdly over the top, ridiculous bullshit and like fear and reconnection and trying to like not be terrified of the future that I might have to endure being criminalized for existing. And so like I'm constantly back.
Several different ways.
Yeah. And so I'm like, anyway,
Here's a movie.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
It's good though. You should watch it.
Johnny, what's the deal, boy? Is your love for real, boy? When the lights are low, you never hold me close. And I saw you today, boy, walking with them gay boys. God, it hurt me so. Now I gotta know, Johnny, are you queer? 'Cause when I see you dancing with your friends, I can't help.
And I'm like, but